I'm John P. Weidenhammer, the founder and CEO of Weidenhammer, and I'm going to take you on a journey through the last 4 decades, which has been peppered with a number of inflection points as the industry's changed, and Weidenhammer's response to that industry change has led us in a different direction. I believe, even as a young person, that I always wanted to be the founder, the president, the CEO of a small business. I was always the kind of guy that had a lemonade stand or was selling something door to door, so I think it was in my future. And one of the things that I saw was that there was frequently a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth associated with the deployment of information systems. And I just knew it didn't have to be that way. So the genesis of the idea behind Weidenhammer, the concept was that we would form a business that would help our clients successfully implement and use information technology. And what I really missed in that was that opportunity was so much bigger than I ever expected. After thinking about starting Weidenhammer, I found myself at a point where I was working for a global technology consulting company, Ernst & Young, and it was time for me to move up in the management structure at Ernst & Young. And my options really were, in order to move up and get a promotion, I had to make a physical move to another location. And I was presented with 3 options. I had a client who was Baldwin Hardware Manufacturing Company. And the CEO of that company was a guy by the name of Severin Fairman, who I view as one of my business heroes or a mentor of mine. And he came to me in December of 1977, and he was looking for me to come to work for him as his IT manager. And I proposed to him that rather than have me come to work for him as his IT manager, that maybe he could be my first client in a consulting business that I wanted to form. We agreed that we would have a 6-month trial, that I basically would work for him 40 hours a week as a consultant. We would give it a try for 6 months, and at the end of 6 months, we would decide whether I would continue with Weidenhammer or whether I would go to work for him. That assignment started on February 15th, 1978, and that really launched Weidenhammer. But 2 significant things that happened really in the history of Weidenhammer was the development of a business management system for Baldwin Hardware. And the other was the process that we went through with the Conrad Weiser School District to help them implement an administrative management system. So we developed an engagement to help Conrad Weiser acquire a computer system, the System 34, through a request for proposal process. And then we helped them acquire and implement software to essentially provide them with the administrative services, things like budgetary accounting, payroll, human resources, student information system, tax collection, student scheduling, et cetera. And it was a huge success. So before you know it, 4 or 5 of the neighboring school districts adopted that same solution that we had developed for Conrad Weiser, and that really launched us into the school administrative software business. So software development has been in our DNA literally since the beginning of our organization. And primarily we were developing software for commercial companies and for this emerging administrative software for the K-12 marketplace. The origins of HammerDev really sprang from our efforts to develop software for commercial companies. And that started really almost from the beginning of Weidenhammer, where we were software developers for hire, and we were very much of a cross-industry kind of a company. And little by little, our skills and capabilities at solving problems for clients through software building and software extension is what has become HammerDev today. 1981 was a challenging time. It was really our very first inflection point in the sense that the economy was tanking. We had very, very high interest rates. And we had a strategy session where we talked about the future of the business. And we were largely a services business. We had developed a set of business applications for commercial companies, accounts payable, general ledger, payroll, inventory management, sales analysis, that kind of thing, targeted at commercial customers running on the IBM mid-range computer set, the System 34, System 36 computers. The other software product family that we had was this administrative software for the K-12 market. So we made a decision that we would pursue basically being a software business, and we would de-emphasize the per diem-based services part of our business and recognize that we could still generate services, but we would generate them around the implementation and deployment of these two families of software. So I would say another inflection point in the history of the company was when we actually got into this IBM program. IBM developed a program called the Marketing Assistance Program. It was commonly referred to as the MAP program. And we were one of the very, very nationally early on companies to get involved in the Marketing Assistance Program. And the road to what is HammerTech today has really had many twists and turns and inflection points. It really started with that early relationship with IBM, helping them resell their hardware products. And in 1987, IBM came to us and asked us to join something that they called their agent program. And we were one of 7 companies nationally to pilot this agent program. In fact, in 1989, Weidenhammer, by sales volume, was the largest agent company in the whole country, and we got awards for this, and it really kind of launched our business. In a 1991 timeframe, the pendulum was swinging away from highly centralized to a more decentralized computing environment. So we started getting involved in decentralization through the use of networking. And the primary network that we dealt with was the Novell network back then. And as we evolved our capability around this distributed computing network versus networks primarily using the Novell operating system, that dragged along a lot of ancillary services for us and kind of got us refocused on the provision of hardware as well. In 1998, Weidenhammer had done a couple of acquisitions up to that point, and strategically, one of the things that we identified was that we wanted to be in more of an agency kind of a business, providing graphical capabilities. We felt that we needed to be able to enhance the experience that our clients had at the glass and to really improve our design capability. So we found a business in Lancaster County. It was run by a guy named Terry Kyle. It was called One Touch Interactive. And they not only had that creative side of the business, but they had the technology side of the business for developing a website, a web presence for a client, as well as an e-commerce presence for a client. What's interesting is some of the clients that came along with that One Touch acquisition are still clients of Weidenhammer today. We're approaching the end of the 90s, and Y2K starts to loom large, and there's great fear that as the clocks turn from 1999 to the year 2000, that much software globally is going to stop working. This was one of the most exciting and candidly one of the most financially successful times for Weidenhammer because the company grew significantly. We were able to help a lot of companies not only swap out their computing infrastructure in preparation for Y2K, which means that what is today our Hammer Tech business had a lot of business in replacing servers, upgrading network computing infrastructure, upgrading wholesale computing systems. But the Hammer Dev side of our business was extremely busy helping to remediate our clients' software and replace it with software that could successfully handle the date computations in a post-1999 time period. We were just super busy. Shortly after Y2K came what some people refer to as the dot-com bust. So all this money had been going into the internet companies and into the so-called dot-com companies. And there had been a lot of hype around IT, and business owners and business decision makers through the dot-com bust sort of began to view technology as an expense that they would manage down because they thought it really didn't deliver value, instead of an investment class expenditure that really added value to the business. So that paradigm shift, that inflection point really hurt our business and led to about 4 years of weakness in the Weidenhammer business. We had to retrench. We shed a lot of staff during that time period. We began to lose money. We got through it, that time period from, I'll say, 2000 to 2004, because we had a very strong balance sheet. Lessons learned during the dot-com bust and sort of the Y2K adventure. I'll say that we learned that it really was the strength of the team, the depth of our knowledge, the depth of our execution capability that really formed the strength of Weidenhammer. Also, our ability to implement a strategy, a set of strategies really, that we had developed much earlier enabled us to endure. And really, there are 3 strategies that have been core to Weidenhammer for many years. And the first one we refer to as our diversity strategy. Weidenhammer has sought to be in multiple lines of business concurrently, with the goal of having these multiple lines of business at different stages of their overall life cycle, so that we have certain mature businesses that can throw off cash to fund our emerging and startup businesses, and we can have certain growth stage businesses that take the place of our mature businesses when they go on critical life support and we need to exit those businesses. So it's a risk abatement strategy, but it's also what we think of as a strategy that enables Weidenhammer to have a long-term business that can endure changes in economic cycles and changes in different segments of our business. So we try to embrace change as an agent of our success rather than an agent of our demise. Another part of our strategy has been what I refer to as moving up the food chain. We intentionally try to evolve the relationships that we have with our clients from being a reactive relationship where we just do what the client tells us to do or what they ask us to do, to a proactive relationship where we're kind of a trusted advisor to the client, and they talk to us about the things that they want to do before they've ever even made a decision. We go to them with ideas even when they're not buying and we're not selling. We take them ideas, and I think our clients really value that. The other part of our strategy, and I think of this as our three-legged stool, so diversity, evolving the relationship with clients, is trying to grow the business. So we're constantly trying to grow our business because we know that larger companies tend to do better across many dimensions. Our business was growing and expanding around the SASE XP student information system. And we wanted to grow our capacity there. And this really transformed Weidenhammer from being initially a East Coast-based company to, after the acquisition of Midwest, a more super regional business, to ultimately, with the acquisition of the SIMS product line and the information design business, to being a national and even international business. And that business in the early going continued to grow. The information design software platform that we ended up calling Alio. And really that acquisition in 2007 enabled us to weather the economic storm that happened in 2008 to 2011, where the economy again turned down. So we had a very stable business in the education business that was able to sustain us during a time period when the commercial part of our business really went into the tank. The recession of 2008 to 2011 really caused organizations and individuals to reconsider their use of technology and the importance of technology as a transformational resource. And a lot of this revolved around the emergence of technologies that use the internet as a vehicle for finding information, for communicating. The cost of an internet connection and the bandwidth available started to really dramatically come down in price. So what we began to see was that organizations were beginning to use technology as a disruptor. And there were a lot of business models that began to emerge where businesses began to operate differently, and it provided them with significant competitive advantage as they disrupted the markets that they served by just taking a very, very different approach, invariably technology enabled. We begin to emerge from the recession of 2008 to 2011 and begin to search kind of for what's next in the business. And we realize that there are two threads in our business. One is our software development business that ultimately becomes HammerDev, and the other is our fledgling and very early commerce business, which ends up becoming Hammer Commerce later when we rebranded. And we felt that both of those businesses could be enhanced through having a deeper creative capability so that we could design better looking applications basically at the glass, at the user interface for both our HammerDev software development business as well as our commerce business. So we started looking around at different agencies, and we hit upon a relationship with an organization called 401 Creative in the Allentown area. And we started working with them on a couple of projects where we engaged with them to provide us with design services, just on a fee-for-hire kind of a basis. And we liked what we saw. We liked very much the talent that was part of the 401 Creative team. And I think they were at a point, too, where they were ready to be part of something bigger. That acquisition fulfilled the need for not only enhancing our capabilities from a design perspective, it brought new clients and new relationships to us in the Lehigh Valley, and really sowed the seeds for what is now our digital marketing capability. We're constantly evolving by doing different things, and we need to do that because our industry is constantly changing. And if we don't change along with it, I think we're subject to what's happened to a lot of companies in our industry, which is oblivion is the next step if you're not evolving and changing and keeping pace and working toward what's new. We're moving now through the mid-2000 teens and looking at where we want to take the business. And as we look at the world, we're beginning to realize that the whole business of commerce, of doing business online, both from a business-to-business as well as a business-to-consumer perspective, is really evolving. In fact, it's on the verge of exploding, and we're seeing more and more as a percentage of total business transactions moving to the online realm. We realized that a platform called Magento has about a third of all of the websites globally on the Magento platform, which primarily was an open source platform that allowed people to adopt this very robust commerce capability through the acquisition and deployment of Magento. And finally, we hit upon an organization called Praxis Information Sciences that was located in Austin, Texas, and there were 3 partners in that business. We acquired some expertise in Magento. We also were, through their relationship with Magento, we became a Magento partner. And so in terms of our objectives, we achieved our objectives. The strategy was right. We were strategically right. It's just that the execution on that acquisition was bad. So the money that we paid for Praxis, certainly some part of it was just wasted money that got thrown out the window. But it affirmed, I think, our strategy that there was a business opportunity there in commerce. And this business ultimately morphed into what we call today the Hammer Commerce business, where we do have a viable, still Magento business. We also have brought in a relationship with a company called Big Commerce that has a different platform, a less services intense platform than the Magento. And we also have a relationship with a couple of other platforms as well. But the one thing strategically that has remained true is that more and more business transactions and consumer transactions are happening online, and really we've seen a tremendous surge in the volume and the value of transactions through commerce. Our business strategy compelled us to be in multiple lines of business at the same time. We came up with this idea of really defining the different pillars of our business in a very specific, branded way. Our managed services, our value-added resale, our hosting business, we would call that Hammer Tech. That our long-term business of providing application development services, we would call that Hammer Dev. That our business really of providing marketing and branding and digital marketing services, we'd call that Hammer Marketing. And then our commerce business, we would call Hammer Commerce. And our 5th business, we never really branded that other than we decided to call our Education Solutions Division, which we ultimately sold in July of 2021, that we would call that Hammer Software. So it really creates for us unlimited potential in terms of where our market can be and where it can go because of the different capabilities that we have. In March of 2020, we finally realized that what we've been reading about for the past 2 months is going to be real, and that COVID is going to change the way we live and work, and we don't know for how long. I think most of us thought that it maybe was going to be a couple of month phenomenon, and that when we made the decision to pivot to work from home on Monday, March 20th of 2020. None of us, I think, realized that it would go on for more than a year. Yet it has morphed into an impact that has had many dimensions to it that I don't think yet fully understand. Certainly, one of the positive things that happened through COVID is that early on we learned that we had the technology, we had the capability to have our team work from home and to work remotely. Additionally, I think our team responded well, because while I expected our business would have a downturn as we went through COVID, we actually saw our business grow. And I think the team really hunkered down and rededicated themselves to our clients and to the business, and just did an extraordinary job of balancing disruptive changes that were happening in their lives. And our clients responded to that as well. Some of the impact of it, I think, is that we've had to adopt more flexible work rules, if you will, and basically, as we pivoted from being an organization that primarily worked in the office to being largely an organization that works in a hybrid model. The lesson in all this is that as we go forward in time, there will be other disruptors. So my advice to the team is think about that, plan for it, expect that, because we know they're going to happen. These are things that we can deal with and things that we can get through, because we have persisted through many disruptive changes in the past. And again, I think that one of the great successes of Weidenhammer across our 4 decades is that when we've confronted these events of change and disruption, for some companies, they've compelled those companies to go out of business. And for us, through our resourcefulness and resilience and persistence, we've been able to get through that and get to the other side and really come out the other side as a more successful, a stronger business. So now we've passed through the threshold of being in business 45 years. So what lies ahead? That's a question that, we all confront as we think about the future, but especially as we think about the future of Weidenhammer. I know that there are certain attributes that we need to embrace to have a successful another couple of decades as a business. One is that each of our branded lines of business needs to think deeply about and plan for the things that they will be doing in the future. Because one of the things that we know for sure is that some of the services and products that we provide today, our clients are not going to want to buy in the future. So we need to continue to make our transition of management and leadership so that not only can we sustain and advance the business, but that we can bring new team members into the business. At the same time, sort of the ultimate place I'd like to get us to is that we become a preferred brand, that sort of clients have a preference for doing business with Weidenhammer, that all things being equal, which they never are. By the same token, my goal would be that we continue to strive and work to become a preferred employer so that people in our industry have a preference to come to work at Weidenhammer and to stay at Weidenhammer for a long time. I've always been somebody that's had a dream of the way my life would turn out, and this company has fulfilled that. It's been from very little on, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My heroes are the entrepreneurs, of which there are so many. And I'll just say that through the hard work of many, and luck, and persistence, and determination, this thing that we call Weidenhammer, which started as an idea and morphed into a vision and really morphed from there into a dream, that it's really been fulfilled. Being a founder is kind of like being the patriarch, I guess, in a family. You know, I take great pride and joy and satisfaction from what we've built together. And the job's not done. That's the great thing about it. It just kind of goes on. And my hope, and it has been for some time, that when I'm gone and no longer involved in the business, that the business can continue. So, you know, my legacy, I hope, is that we've created something here that can sustain itself forward in time.